by, and we'll hear from Kate Griggs from Extraordinary People first, please.
Good morning. What would you say if I told you that there are 2 million children in state school right now that will fail? They'll fail to reach their potential, and many will fail to learn to read, write and do maths properly. But what would you think if I told you that those same children would almost certainly succeed if they were in our independent schools? That's a massive social injustice, but it's the reality that most dyslexic children and their families face in this country. Between 10 and 20% of children are dyslexic or have specific learning difficulties. This affects reading, writing, maths, concentration, memory, getting your thoughts on paper, learning across the board. If identified and supported, these children can excel. I'm dyslexic, so is my father, so is my brother, and so are my children. And I've been lucky enough to have benefited from an independent school education, which has benefited my children too. But as a campaigner, I see the desperation faced by millions of families in this country as they watch their children fall further and further behind and are unable to pay for the support which they know will help their children succeed. But what does the world of education know about dyslexia? Well, Dr. Shaywitz from Yale University, who's an expert in this, tells us that we know more about dyslexia than we do about cancer. We know how to identify it and how to intervene at an early age. In fact, 9 out of 10 independent schools in this country have a dyslexia specialist. So how come, according to NUT research, 9 out of 10 teachers in our state schools don't know how to teach dyslexic children effectively and are crying out for training? But how does this impact on our children? Well, government-funded research earlier on this year found that 55% of children failing SATS were dyslexic or had specific learning difficulties. But how would you feel if I were to tell you that dyslexia and the lack of recognition of dyslexia is the root cause of some of society's most serious problems? The frustration, the humiliation, the failure that these children face on a daily basis is having dramatic impact on their lives. Research tells us that 53% of inmates in Chelmsford Prison are dyslexic. In Los Angeles, they did research into teenage suicide, finding that 50% were dyslexic. And in Stirling University, research into drug abuse found that 40% of drug users were dyslexic. How can we let this happen to our children? Worse still, these children have huge potential. Dr. Shaywitz tells us that whilst they may struggle with traditional education, they have a sea of strengths. Famous dyslexics illustrate these talents. Churchill, JFK for their leadership, their courage and their vision. Branson and Gates for their entrepreneurialism, thinking out of the box. Disney, Spielberg, Picasso, Warhol for their creativity and their imagination. Just imagine the talents that are going unrecognised and wasted in this country right now. We have to take action. We know what works. Dyslexia charities are united in advising government that one teacher in every school should be given training to be a dyslexia specialist at a cost of just £1,500. This government is wasting tens of millions on pilots and reviews to discover what clearly we already know. Their failure is costing the taxpayer, you, £1.8 billion every year. Their failure is denying children in this country the right, the basic right to an education that enables them to reach their potential. We're failing children, we're failing families, and we're failing Britain. And that failure is wasting £1.8 billion a year when nowadays we know we cannot afford to waste that. We have to solve the dyslexia problem now. Only then can we transform education and unlock the potential of Britain's failing children. Thank you.